Welcome to this first of four family diplomacy issue presentations. We are going to hear today, it looks like, from Begum Burak, who's joining us from Istanbul, Turkey. She is going to be talking with us about the refugee crisis from Syria to Turkey, and how that has impacted her community, the country, and families. And then following that, we're going to have a discussion around that. So you guys will be providing her some feedback on the presentation, asking any clarifying questions, and if you have any comments, by all means, about refugee crises, by all means, share. Particularly if you have any information that you want to share that helps us better understand the problem. I want to remind you, this is part of our family diplomacy initiative. And this year, and through this series of presentations, we're essentially looking to develop our knowledge on big issues that are impacting families. The big issues that we're focusing on are war, poverty, climate change, the internet, and gender-based violence. So we look forward to kind of learning about this. So the point this year is not so much to focus on storytelling, but rather to focus on learning about these big issues. So in this case, the impact of war on refugee families and on surrounding countries in this case. So with that said, Begum, you're going to have 15 minutes, 5 minutes to present. I'll time you. Gabriela is taking attendance in the document, reporting everybody who's in attendance, including our interns, if you would. You're encouraged during Begum's presentation to write comments or questions that you have based upon the presentation, so that we can then discuss your comments and questions during after her presentation. Kennedy, you are taking screenshots, if I remember correctly. And Gabriela, was there anything else that I needed to remind people of? I can't remember. I think you just had that task, but it may have been something else as well.
Just that I'll be communicating with them, if anything, on the chat. So just to be alert.
Yeah, so you'll be communicating with them if we haven't heard from them, I guess. So we're expecting all of you to participate. Please do. So Chi, I think, is having trouble connecting, but Joshua, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
So we need to take an initial screenshot. We'll probably take screenshots throughout. Kennedy, you're going to be taking like speaker mode shots, which would be great, not just of Begum, but others. Joshua, if you could turn on your camera briefly, that would be great. And in fact, if you can keep it on, great. But if it interferes with your ability to hear us, then totally understand if you wanted to keep it off. Okay, so on 3, I want to take a photo. So Joshua, if you could have your camera on. And Nusrat, can you turn your camera on as well? Okay, there we go. Joshua, you'll need to turn towards the sun for us to be able to see you. Turn your face towards the sun or the light. And Nusrat, I guess we don't hear her. Good. Okay. On three, if you could all smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. Fantastic. I think all looks great. Beautiful. All right, Begum. The podium is yours, so to speak.
Thank you. So I have 10 minutes, right, for presenting?
You've got 15 minutes. You can take 10 minutes, totally fine. And speak for up to 15 minutes. I'm going to time you, but I'm assuming you want us to show your slides.
I can share it, yes.
Oh, excellent. If you can do that, that's great.
So thank you so much for this opportunity. My topic is about the Syrian refugee crisis, Syrian war, and the influx of Syrian refugees into Turkey, and how this civil war in Syria and the influx of the refugees in Turkey have impacted Turkish families and also Syrian families. But I will mostly I will have a look at how it impacts the Turkish community. First of all, before giving a picture of the overview of the Syrian refugee crisis in Turkey, I want to tell what happened and then this refugee influx took place. In 2011, there was a civil war in Syria, and this war has impacted of course, the lives of the civilians and all the people in Syria. So there was a huge population exchange, not exchange, but a shift of population to some neighboring countries. And Turkey has been one of the primary countries that hosted a huge number of refugees in the aftermath of this war after 2011. Turkey has taken in over 3.6 million Syrian refugees, the highest number of any country. This influx has dramatically changed the demographic landscape, with Syrians now making about 4.5% of Turkey's total population. The sheer scale of the crisis has put immense pressure on Turkey's infrastructure and public services. So before going into details how this impacted families and the society, I want to give some details about my own city. I live in Istanbul. Istanbul is one of the biggest cities in Turkey, so it also hosts a great number of refugees. Also, the area, the district that I reside in is like not very rich and developed districts of Istanbul. So there are lots of Syrian people in my neighborhood and in this area. In the rich and upper, developed regions, there are less Syrians. Of course, this region is like middle rank in development. There are other places which have larger numbers of Syrian refugees. Yes. So first of all, I want to talk about the demographic changes and challenges for Turkish families. There are three main aspects that we can summarize how this impacted in terms of demography. The first thing is related to cultural barriers. The integration of Syrian refugees, many of whom do not speak Turkish, has created communication challenges and cultural frictions with Turkish communities. The second aspect is education. Is about education. Educational struggles. Providing education for the large number of refugee children has stretched the capacity of the school system, leading to overcrowding and resource shortages. Changing neighborhood dynamics. The influx of refugees has altered the composition of many Turkish neighborhoods. Sometimes in some neighborhoods there are some tensions and concerns about security and resource allocation. Also, this huge influx of refugees had a big impact on public services and infrastructure. The first one is about the overburdened, we can name it as the overburdened healthcare system. personally, I also see this in my personal life as a problem. Sometimes I experience this because in Turkey, there are not many expert doctors. So there are some practitioners, but the expert doctors, some go abroad. So we have only like 10 or 15 minutes for when we get appointment from a state hospital. We can only stay with the doctor like maximum 15 minutes. So this influx, this population flow has been undermining this healthcare system in Turkey. So it has been also harder for the Turkish citizens to get the access to the health care facilities. The second thing is about the housing shortages. Recently, in recent years, the rent prices have been increasing. This is also because partly because of the economic crisis, but also because of the Syrian refugees. Many people are looking for houses, and so this makes the prices go up. Affordable housing has become a problem, we can say. The third one is the strained utilities and municipal services. The increased demand for water, electricity, and other public services in refugee-heavy areas has strained local infrastructure, leading to frequent outages and service disruptions. In my region, I didn't see this much too often. There are not many. There is not a considerable degree of service disruption in this region, but some regions suffer this problem, I think. Also, in addition to cultural and cultural aspects, there are some concerns about the resource allocation. One of them is the labor market disruption. The influx of Syrian workers has led to competition for jobs, particularly in the informal sector, causing wage stagnation and concerns about job security among Turkish citizens. So I want to give a little, provide some details here. Many of the Syrian workers still do not know good Turkish, cannot speak Turkish well. Also, most of them are unskilled. So for unskilled positions, some of them also are unregistered, so they are not legal residents here. So some employers prefer to hire them because they don't pay social security funding for them because they are not registered. Also, they work for lower wages. So this creates some kind of problems for the unskilled people in Turkish people because they also look for the same jobs. The second thing is increased burden on public finances. The cost of supporting the refugee population, including social services and healthcare, has placed a significant strain on Turkey's government budget. This is true because Turkey's economy has been going worse day by day. So one of the reasons is also this problem, unfortunately, in addition to bad governance, bad ruling. The third thing is about the concerns about resource allocation. Also, I am checking my time. Okay. There are growing concerns among the public that resources are being disproportionately directed towards the refugee population. So here, in turn, the resources mean much more than the financial resources. For example, in Turkey, foreign students, it's much easier for foreign students to go to the medical faculty, for example. Normally, it's really hard being successful in the university entrance exam and being able to go enroll in the faculty of medicine. But the foreign students, all of them, of course, not refugees, but they take an easier exam. So many of them, go to good universities without the credentials, I think. And also, this is another part of the problem. As I said, the other aspect of my research has been related with the Syrian families. So how we saw how Turkish families face this problem, but also there's some kind of problem for the incoming refugees. Three main points are to be noted here. One of them is discrimination. Yes, some people do not feel bad about these people, the refugees, but some segments of society have some discrimination and they do not want such people in the society anymore, because they think that the war has ended. You know, it has been almost 13 years. So why do they still here? Because they left their country to survive, but now they just live here. So many of them are not good educated, and they have some problems integrating society. So this also leads to discrimination. Impacts on social cohesion is another problem for Syrian refugees, and the public backlash. Growing resentment towards the refugee population has led to some public protests in some parts, but generally speaking, there is a peaceful environment in Turkey, although there are some specific cases of problems. Finally, I can say about I want to talk about the efforts of the government to manage the refugee influx. There are some steps that the government took. It's like temporary protection status, integration programs, and international cooperation. And as my concluding remarks, I offer three solutions to solve this problem. The first one is empathy and understanding. The second one is equitable resource allocation. Here I want to again also give some details. I don't think that equitable resource allocation is a good solution, because when someone citizen, of course, he should be the first class. I mean, citizens pay taxes. Citizens, you know, they are the, I think, sole residents of this country. So this equitable resource allocation, of course, if you work hard, you must get what you deserve. But in terms of an immigrant or a refugee or a citizen being equal is not realistic for me. Also, I do want to immigrate to another country, but I'm aware that I'm not equal to the citizens, because it's something totally different. So this equal, fair distribution of resources, maybe among the immigrants themselves, is a good point. The third aspect, long-term integration strategies, developing comprehensive long-term integration strategies that focus on education, employment, and cultural exchange can help Syrian refugees become self-sufficient. And contribute to the host country's economic and social development. Basically, I think I'm also about to consume all of my time. So this was the end of my slides. I tried to give some both personal and some academic perspective about this issue. Also, I want to thank Gabriela very much. We met yesterday, and she gave me some constructive feedback. So I hope I could draw a picture of what's going on about the situation. Thanks.
Great, Begum. Thanks for an interesting presentation. Guys, if you can, I'm going to put you guys back on gallery view here. First of all, it would be great is to get some input from you all about her presentation. What was unclear, what was clear, what you think she did well, what you think could have been better developed, and else. And then let's have a discussion around kind of this refugee crisis, because I think it's interesting, right? Not just because it's happening there between Syria and Turkey, but it's a more generalized problem and of growing interest to a growing number of people, precisely because it's a growing problem. But first, input on the presentation. And keep in mind, for FDs, we want to hear from all of you. You should all be actively participating. Our family diplomats, so Chia, Nusrat, Joshua. You can't be wallflowers. You have to actually participate and give us your thoughts on her presentation. And please use your electronic hands, raise your hands to speak. Guys, please do, all of you, including interns, you should all be contributing to the conversation. And at this point, speak rather than write it in the Zoom chat. Go ahead, Chia. Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry, Paul. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Sure.
Well, I have some issue with the connection. Well, I was joining even when he was finishing his presentation, her presentation. Well, I got some point. He said something like the refugees from Syria, they're really helpless. But what is the government doing about this refugee? Are they doing something, or there is no action taken?
So hold off on your questions about the content and so on. What we're looking to hear first is just your feedback on her presentation first, on Begum's presentation. And so any thoughts that you had, granted, it sounds like, Chia, you only caught the last part of her presentation, but if you have thoughts on the presentation itself, your feedback, what she did well, what could have been clearer, and so on.
Well, for what I got her, it was she did well. She did well, and just that the last part we didn't really got the the solution. Yeah, I didn't really got the solution he tried to mention. I think his time was up.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. But it sounds like it was clear, but you're not clear on what solutions might be. Although I think the last slide got at some of the things that could be done to resolve the challenges. Thanks, Chia. Gabriela?
Yeah, hi. I really liked the introduction and just like introducing, setting up the story and all the information that came on later by talking a little bit about like what caused this crisis or what brought this on about the civil war in Syria. So I really enjoyed that. I think that was a great job of building that up because I kept that in mind about, why these things are happening, why you see these certain trends or issues happening in Turkey. So I think that was very helpful.
Great. Other feedback on the presentation itself, things that were not clear, things that were clearer, and any questions that have to do, well, hold off on content questions, but if you have kind of more like technical questions or anything like that. Jesse.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say the slides were really well organized, clear and concise. I just think it might have benefited more if there were more facts or statistics or numbers, stuff like that. But overall, it was really great.
Yeah, so Begum, there was the fact at the start about 3.6 million, it sounds like, refugees. But I guess, Jesse, what you're suggesting is that with each of those points about the problems and the solutions, perhaps some numbers or other facts to support those, perhaps. Good point. Any other input? Amy.
Yeah, for me, I really enjoyed the presentation, and I just felt like when she was talking about the experiences between like the Turkish people and the refugees. I think it would be more compelling to share like personal stories or like some sort of like anecdote from your own life. I feel like that really helps us to understand the impact better and make it more humanized.
Yeah. So yeah, stories about families, right, and or about particular experiences you've had. I think is these are good points, Amy. Anybody else? For comments that have not as yet been addressed. So you're getting some feedback in the Zoom chat, and it sounds like David is not able to unmute, but in any case, there are, yeah, so he has his comments highlighting how the government needs to address the issue by increasing social service all around, give the presentation section where there's solvency. Moreover, a part where you can explain what you personally would like to see change would also add to that solvency act or resolution, I guess is what he's trying to say. So I think Begum, it seems to me, just to wrap things up on the input on your presentation, I think we can't but agree that it was a very well organized presentation. It was clear. There were, you had short, clear statements of the challenges and of the kinds of proposals you have for resolving some of the problems. As some folks said, it would be helpful to have more personal stories, whether it's yours or of others, about the situation. And I think also, because this is family diplomacy, talking more about families and the ways this impacts families, both Turkish and Syrian families. I think gave us a broader look, but not so much a specific look at some of the situation, what it looks like on the ground. One of the questions that I think we'll get to when we talk about kind of like the meat of this problem is how you find that you encounter refugees in your everyday life, and how those interactions go between you or others in those in the situations in which you encounter refugees in your everyday life. So is it at coffee shops? Is it at schools? Is it at on the street? Are they traveling together in groups? Are they separated? Are they working? Are they not working, et cetera, and so forth? Giving some clear sense of the on the ground situation and the ways in which the refugee crisis is impacting people on the ground would be really helpful. In line with that, the photos, I think I agree with Amy, the graphics were beautiful, but it would have been actually really good to have photos, whether it's grabbed from media, of actual families, refugee families, or situations in which refugees are part of the life and fabric of Turkish life. So it would have been interesting to see actual images, because then that gives us a clear sense, a more visual sense, palpably, of the refugee problem and what it looks like on the ground, or challenges with refugees. Any other comments before we have Begum? Begum, you may want to respond, but any other comments before Begum responds, and then we can just launch into a discussion, kind of learning more generally about this refugee crisis, not just between Syria and Turkey, but anything else that you guys would like to share from your different vantage points. I'll note here that Chia is a refugee from Cameroon, currently living in the United Arab Emirates. So he may have some perspective on this, but I'm sure a number of you may have taken classes or know some things about the refugee crisis, and so this will be a good time for you to share. But any other comments before we have Begum respond? Okay, Begum, any thoughts?
I want to thank everyone for their comments, and I am happy that this seems helpful for all of us. Yes, I should have added more maybe statistical information. Also, maybe real life pictures from newspapers or magazines could be helpful. In my daily life, where and when do I encounter Syrian refugees? In my daily life, I see them in hospitals and banks. Banks, I mean, the financial bank. So it is also called bank, I think, right? The
Yep.
branch of banks. So because I'm not studying anymore, so I don't go to schools. I don't have any kids I take to school, so I see them at hospitals, banks, and sometimes public transportation. They can be individuals or living in groups, but generally they live like in ghettos. But in terms of their when they mobilize, they can be also individuals, as I see it. So like this. Also, another question: what can the government do to improve the overburdened healthcare system? Already the government has taken some steps. One of them is there is the establishment of some special health institutions like clinics. They are only open for the refugees and Syrian people. So the doors has Arabic labels, not Turkish. So there are some sort of small clinics or health offices for them in this. When can you talk about the interactions between the refugees and the Turkish society? Yes, the interactions. I most of the time I spent my days generally in library. So in library I don't see like refugees. There are some foreign students, but they are students. They are not refugees. So in my daily life, in my personal experience, I don't encounter them so much. I don't go to a workplace. I'm a freelancer, so I don't see very often. So this is all I can say. I think I answered the questions. David has also given a detailed comment here. David, is David? Yes, David Lopez. Thanks, David, for this. Yes, I agree with you. So this is all I can say. Thank you so much. Yes, the slides I used some AI tools while creating this stuff. Maybe if I had more time, I would prepare a more detailed one. But I think it also was helpful for me and you. So this is all I can say. Personally, I don't have problems with the refugees, but in terms of resource allocation, is the labor markets problems, and also healthcare, the burden on the doctors. This seems problems for me, which I also see some days. But generally, I think also they should return if they don't have legally standard life here. It's better for them to go back to their countries. This is my personal opinion. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
Begum, thanks for that. Others, questions or comments or thoughts on kind of the substance of this refugee crisis and Begum's presentation? Please raise your hands electronically. Joshua, we haven't heard from you, and I wonder if you're Noor Nusrat. And Chia, we'd love to hear from you again, considering your position, your situation. But I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts from your respective countries, from United Arab Emirates, Joshua from Uganda, Nusrat from Bangladesh. I know that Bangladesh has its
Yes,
own. Go ahead, Chia.
yes, Paul, thank you so much again for giving me the opportunity to speak. Yeah, as Begum said, I'm just wondering because if someone is a refugee, like he said, he gave a solution that if they don't have anything to do in Turkey, let them go back to their country. You know, when someone is a refugee, sometimes they lost everything, you know, they lost everything, literally. So if you can have a way to provide for them a help there for them to make out their life, make out their families, support the remaining families, maybe they have, maybe they don't have, back home, that would be good rather than telling them to go back because sometimes they don't even have where to go, you know. They don't have where to go. As for my experience, I know this clearly because what is going on in my country now is terrible because you know sometimes you get up one morning and you lost everything, everything, even your home, it's burned down, all your properties that you have worked for so much time, all your life, you lose everything, and you find yourself might be in the street sometimes just trying to survive. You find yourself somewhere else,
I
internally
agree.
displaced somewhere, not even having what to eat. And in this situation, if you happen to relocate to a nearby country where you can manage to have a daily life, it will be beneficial if anyone can give you a helping hand rather than saying that you should go back to your home country because it will be like they are sending you back to hell, you know. So
No,
it's
I
really
don't feel
difficult
that
when you see.
very much. So, yes, Chia, I agree with
Sorry.
you. The ones who couldn't make a living here, you know, who have some problems, even living in a on a standard life. So maybe they can also try there. If their conditions are good there, again they can return. Of course, I don't want to send anyone to a war-torn country among the bombs or in a war place. But if their country is restored, if things get better, then they can go. But I agree with
Sounds like you guys agree that, well, if you come from a war-torn country, you can't go back. You cannot go back. And you have to figure out something to do with them. I think in the case of Syria, I don't, to be honest, like I don't know exactly what the situation. It seems to have stabilized to some extent with the Assad regime having prevailed, but there still seems to be conflict in the country. There is this problem, Chia, and I guess there's a worthy distinction to be made between economic and political refugees. Economic refugees are fleeing because there isn't enough economic opportunity. Political refugees, ostensibly, because their lives are threatened. And so, in the United States, we make this big distinction between the two and allow more for political refugees than economic refugees because there are many, many, many more people who would love to move from their country because of lack of economic opportunity. But in your case, Chia, and in the case of Syrian refugees, your case from Cameroon, it is in fact a political crisis. There's violence being perpetrated and real threats. So other thoughts on this? Joshua, go ahead. Joshua's joining us from Uganda.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. My name is Joshua Kisubika. I'm joining in from Uganda. Just to say thank you, Begum, for sharing with us and giving an example of sharing, just like Uganda here. I think Uganda hosts is one of the biggest hosts of refugees in Africa, if not in the world. Around 1.5 million refugees come from South Sudan and other neighboring countries, Congo. But to share, I was listening to Begum's presentation of how burdened the government is, or how burdened the refugee crisis is in their country. I really don't know how their interventions that are in place or that are being worked on. For example, here in Uganda, we have a unique refugee settlement approach. When refugees come, they are allowed to mingle, interact with the local communities. They are given a land for agriculture. Some are skilled. All those are government initiatives that try to support these refugee communities. You find that they are skilled in IT skills, in farming skills, so that they contribute to the economic development of the country. And we have, a number of refugee camps as well, like the BBD, the Naivasha. So I don't know whether some of these interventions are also there in your country. Thank you so much.
Joshua, just to clarify, what was the last thing you were saying? Were there refugee councils, and what did those things do?
The refugee settlement approach.
Yeah, what is that? Explain what's the I think you mentioned councils. Is that correct?
I say that there is a unique refugee settlement approach that the government uses. Like they allow these refugees from our neighboring countries, like in South Sudan and Congo, where there are this number of wars. So when they come here, they are settled well in the camps, like the Naivasha camp, the Bidi camp, but they are also given an opportunity to interact with the local community. They are skilled, IT skilled, agribusiness skills, so that they can contribute to the economic development of the country. So I was wondering whether the same approach, instead of just keeping the refugees in the camps and they burden the economy of the country, like in Begum's country. I don't know whether some of these interventions can be done, because we host a number. Like if you search about Uganda, we are the biggest host of refugees here in Africa. And I think even in the world, we are one of the biggest hosts of refugees. Yeah. So for us, of course it's a burden, but the government tries to bring up these initiatives of supporting them so that they can contribute to the economic development of the country.
Like how many figure for refugee you have in your country, Mr. Joshua? You can
Sorry?
guess the figure? I mean the figures.
Roughly, I think statistics says 1.5 million. That's the number we host.
Wow.
We have, yes, five. I need to be sure of the number, but roughly I think that's 1.5 million refugees we have from South Sudan, Congo, and other countries.
Yeah, so for a country of, I just looked up the Ugandan population, you guys have about 48 million people. That's not a small number at 1.5 million refugees for Uganda. It's pretty large. But Begum, did you want to respond? And then we'll have we are switching to Abdul, who I think we don't have a presentation for him, and I don't know if we have good connection, but Abdul does want to talk with us about poverty and family life in Ghana. So we're going to be transitioning to that in a moment. But Begum, do you have an answer to Joshua's question about giving a little more detail about the ways in which the Turkish government and society are trying to integrate economically, particularly Turkish refugees, excuse me, Syrian refugees.
Thanks, Joshua, for your question. I don't have the latest developments. I am not sure what kind of legal steps have been taken by the government. But as I said, there are some institutions established only for the serving for the Syrian refugees, like hospitals, or integrating them to language courses and some sort of social facilities. But I think they are not enough, because in some regions the population is really high. It's even higher than Turkish citizens' populations. For example, there is a city in the southern part of Turkey called Kilis. Kilis has a great number of refugees. It's very close to the border. So I don't think that government can take sufficient steps. Of course, the government took some steps, but they are not very in the expected levels. But yes, I agree with Joshua. Maybe even Uganda, I don't know, but maybe your government can be more successful. Maybe it's more successful than my government, because as I said, there are some illegal also refugees here. Also, lately I watched it on the news. The Minister of Interior Affairs has sent some messages to these people, because some of them are not, living in the houses that they are registered. So their addresses are different, but they are not living there. So there are also lots of unregistered Syrians living in Turkey. It says 3.6 million, but this is the registered numbers, maybe even like 10 million, I guess. Even because Istanbul's population is more than like 16 million something. So I think in Turkey there are lots of Syrians living. But I'm going to have a look at what government does. Thank you, Joshua and Chia and all other friends, for their questions and comments.
Great. I'm gonna I think I'm gonna look up and put in the in fact, actually, I would give this as a task to one of our interns. Nick, if you could look up and just give us the percentage, and this is just as Begum just rightly pointed out, there's the official number of refugees in a given country, and then there may be lots of unregistered people who are refugees. So we can only go with these official numbers. But Nick, if you can just look up the number. So we have an estimate from Begum of 3.6 million refugees. And I gather that's just from Syria. We don't know if there are other refugees versus the total population of Turkey. So just rough numbers. And then just if you can just give us the percentage of the population that is refugee given that, right? So the basic math for that. And then the same thing for Uganda. It would be great if you can look up, see if you can find statistics on the total number of refugees in Uganda versus the population, and then just divide the population, the total population, well, excuse me, the immigrant population by the total population. It'd be great to have that information. Okay, we are going to switch gears and we are going to hear from Abdul, who is joining us from Ghana. Abdul, it looks like I can see you, you can hear us. It seems like the connection is good enough. If you, for some reason, have any problems sharing, or if we can't hear you very well, you should just turn off your camera so that should should improve your audio. But for now, we're going to give you 15 minutes, just like we gave Begum 15 minutes. And then if you could, and then we'll have a conversation around. It'll be somewhat shorter conversation, but you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Paul, for the opportunity. Wow. This is my presentation. I actually, I don't know. Please, can you hear me?
No. Yes.
Yes, go ahead. Abdul,
Am I clear?
Abdul, you should turn off your camera. Turn off your camera so that we can hear you by audio. And I think right now there's a big delay between what we're saying and when you hear us.
You have to put on my camera.
So go ahead and turn off your camera.
Okay, Paul, I will do that.
Well, just go elsewhere. Shit.
My mother is joining and I'm not sure if she knows she's speaking. So I'm going to mute you, Mom. So. And generally speaking, you guys should be. Okay, I think Abdul, yeah, you should all be on mute other than Abdul. Go ahead, Abdul. Abdul, can you hear us? If we can't get Abdul on, then we'll have to we'll have to cut things short. But in any case, note here, thanks to Nick for coming up with the percentages. These are migrants numbers, I gather. So migrants are different from refugees. And from my understanding of refugees, my limited understanding, refugees are typically understood as political migrants. In other words, they're fleeing a violent situation or threats to their lives, versus migrants who could be, I think, a more general term, which refers to both political and economic migrants. And so so that's a broader number than the strictly the number of refugees, but it's nonetheless somewhat significant. So in both cases of Uganda and Turkey. Abdul, can you hear us? Okay. I don't think Abdul can hear us. So we'll have to let me if you could stop sharing his presentation. Thanks, Kennedy. It looks like, unfortunately, Abdul, we can't do your presentation. However, there is the possibility of doing it.
Hello, Paul.
Yep, Abdul.
Am I audible enough?
Yes, you're audible enough.
Okay. Please, Kennedy.
Okay. Go ahead, Kennedy, if you can go ahead and show
Kennedy, I have sent you a PowerPoint one. I don't know if you can use that one.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you,
sharing it
Kennedy.
now.
Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
You just need to blow it up, Kennedy.
Okay. My name is Abdul from Ghana. My name is Abdul Basit from Ghana, and I'm doing a presentation on the effects of poverty on families and strategies for mitigation. And my subtitle has to do with understanding the impact and implementing solutions. Like I said already, I'm the Basit from Ghana. Introduction to poverty and its prevalence. And the objective of this presentation is to discuss the multifaceted impacts of poverty on families and explore strategies to alleviate these effects. Poverty is defined as the severe deprivation of basic human needs, including food, water, sanitation, health, education, and information. And when someone is lacking any of these basic needs, that person can be classified as being poor. I will have key aspects of poverty, and one of the key aspects of poverty has to do with economic poverty. That is insufficient income to meet basic needs. As already mentioned in the definition of poverty, when one is lacking any of the basic needs, that is information, quality education, health, then you are economically what? Being poor. Social poverty, which is a lack of access to essential services such as education, health, and protection. Environmental poverty, living in areas with poor infrastructure, inadequate housing, and vulnerability to environmental hazards. This can be aligned to people who are in Ghana, especially in the northern part of Ghana, Tamale, especially people from Nigeria are now found on the streets of Tamale begging, and they have been exposed to the environmental hazards, especially as we are in the rainy season now. And they sleep outside since they don't have any adequate housing system to sleep in. Political poverty, limited participation in decision-making processes, and exposure to corrupt practices. This is also an aspect of poverty. Psychological poverty, feeling of powerlessness, exclusion, and lack of dignity. This can be aligned to people living with disability. Okay. Causes of poverty, we have a whole lot of things that are leading to the cause of poverty. We have economic inequality. When resources of the nation are not evenly dispersed or distributed, certain parts of the country or certain geographical area will be economically poor. Lack of education. Poverty leads to lack of education. For instance, we have the rural sector and the urban sector, and they are all studying the same things. But when you go to the urban schools, the infrastructure data that they have is not the same as compared to those in the rural sector. And this will tell you that their quality to education is limited. Unemployment, insufficient job opportunities. This is a general situation in almost every African country, or let me just say worldwide. Every year, people are graduated from the tertiary schools, but the government has limited space to absorb all of them, causing unemployment. Health issues, chronic illness, and disability is also a cause of poverty. Political instability. When there are wars, economic activities are halted, which will lead to loss of properties and lives, trickling down to poverty. Environmental factors, natural disasters, climate change, resource depletion. Currently, as we talk, we were supposed to be having rainfalls in the northern part of Ghana, but the rains are not coming. and crops are virtually dying. I couldn't provide a picture here, but maybe if I'm given the chance, I'll provide you pictures of how crops are dying because of climate change effect. We also have discrimination and social exclusion, and these are always aligned to people living with disability. Okay, Kennedy. We have global statistics on poverty. You'll be shocked to know that 9.2% of the world's population lives on less than $1.9 a day, and this can be found in the World Bank Poverty Review. We still have traces of COVID-19. We're having people being in poor, but COVID-19 pushed 97 million people into extreme poverty because when COVID-19 came, economic activities were halted and people had to lose their jobs due to that pandemic. Regional disparities, Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia have the highest poverty rates in the world. For multidimensional poverty, 1.3 billion people are multidimensionally poor, and this is a cause of worry globally. Kennedy? To the African statistics on poverty, as already mentioned in the previous slide, Sub-Saharan Africa, 40% of the population live in extreme poverty. Poverty depth, highest poverty gap indicating severe poverty levels, and 52% of children in Sub-Saharan Africa live in extreme poverty, and that can be found in UNICEF Child Poverty Report. We are now on Ghana statistics, where I am coming from. We have 23.4% national poverty rate in 2017. And this is very alarming. That is about 2017, we're now in 2014, and this should tell you that it has increased. Regional disparities. Where I am coming from in Ghana, I am staying in the northern part of Ghana, that is the northern region, having more than 50% of the population being poor. And when you come to the regional or the urban and rural, you can see the difference by itself, 39.5% against 10.6%, telling you that there is so much poor people in the rural areas in the north in Ghana, and that is in the northern part of Ghana. Multidimensional poverty, 29% of Ghanaians are multidimensionally poor, and all this information can be found in the Ghana Statistical Service Report 2017. Effects of poverty, health and well-being. When one is not able to feed well, especially on the part of children, you know there will be malnourishing. There will be malnourished, leading to malnourishment. Limited healthcare access. You don't even have the financial capacity to give yourself good healthcare. Mental health issues, overthinking about how to feed your family are all what effects of poverty. Education, we have reduced education opportunity because you don't have the financial background or because people are not having strong financial background. Their access to educational opportunities are less. People are not able to pay their school fees, leading to dropout rates and also leading to what? Poor academic performances because they don't have the financial capacity to acquire the educational materials. We have social and emotional development, stigmatization, which is very common. People are being stigmatized because of how they appear. And you know, when you are rich, you appear neat. When you are poor, you appear poor or you appear dirty. Limited social mobility, you don't even have enough. How much more do you move to social grounds? Economic strain, housing instability, inadequate living conditions. Health and well-being, malnutrition, as already mentioned, standard growth in children because they are not being fed well. Limited healthcare access. And you also have the mental health leading to depression. Okay, I'm just brushing through because of time constraints. We have future prospects of poverty, intergenerational poverty. I already mentioned in the topic mitigation. When mitigation factors are not put in place, there's going to be a cycle of poverty persisting across generations. The poor will continue to be poor and the rich will continue to be rich. And that is not good for the world, leading to more of those people involving themselves into crimes like armed robbery, petty thievery, and those things, which is now common here, like we call it internet fraud. Most of those people in it are people from the poor families. Limited employment, lack of education and skills. You don't have enough to educate yourself. Your access to employment too is low. Reduced life expand, chronic health issues and lack of healthcare. We have people suffering from sicknesses that you think that, or that you can imagine if they were well empowered or they were well resourced with finances, they wouldn't have been suffering from those sicknesses. But because of poverty, you see them suffering from those sicknesses, leading to their death. We come to addressing poverty, that is education and training. As part of education, which has to do with quality education and vocational training, there is an organization which I am aligned to. We have an educational project which aims to cover the gaps that were created during COVID-19 to improve literacy skills in some selected basic schools through an outreach program that is done every weekend. Similar projects are being done by other NGOs to complement the work or the efforts that the government is doing. And that is few pictures or two pictures of the reading factory of the Read Alive project. This is carried out every Saturday to help children improve on their reading skills and writing skills. We also have social protection programs, and that is on the government part and other international agencies. Social protection programs are being defined as a range of actions carried out by the state and other parties in response to vulnerability and poverty, which seeks to guarantee relief for those sections of the population who, for any reason, are not able to provide for themselves. And these are some of the things government does. As mentioned below, we have Ghana has, I'm just brushing to Ghana has a number of social protection programs for children and adults and the aged, which include the capitation grants, which is for the basic schools management, school feeding program, health insurance scheme, livelihood empowerment against poverty supported by UNICEF, which are all under the National Social Protection Policy.
Abdul, just so you're aware, you have about a minute and a half left.
Okay. This is a picture of one of the social protection programs which is being implemented by the government of Ghana, a school feeding program where they provide feeding for basic school children. Okay. As part of the social protection programs, as already mentioned, we have the LEAP, a cash transfer program targeting the extremely poor, vulnerable households. We also have the health insurance, which ensures access to healthcare services for all Ghanaians, divide of your financial background. Youth Employment Agency, providing skills training and employment opportunities for young Ghanaians. As part of this, we also have other organizations. Yesterday, I happened to be part of one training program which was organized by one NGO in Tamale here, and they were providing skills training for graduates. And some of the skills training they were doing was soap making, beads making, as well as satellite installation, so that they can always be self-employed when the government is not yet absorbing them into the public sector. We also have the planting for food and jobs, which is for farmers to complement their efforts in the farming sector. So as part of that, on the health, that is the outcomes. By providing affordable healthcare, the NHIS has significantly reduced financial burden on poor households, leading to improved health outcomes and reduced mortality rate. Education, that is a leap. Families are being provided with cash to provide certain needs for their children in school. Also have the economic stability, that is a planting for food and jobs. Farmers are being provided with seeds and fertilizer on subsidized basis. And these are some of the social protection programs being done by government. Thank you.
Great, Abdul. Thank you for what was a complex kind of presentation with lots of information. So let me get back to here. So we only have about 12 minutes. Would still like to get your input from you guys, so please raise your electronic hands as to the input on the presentation first. So what you did well, what you did not do well, what was less clear, and so on. Chia first, go ahead.
Thank you. Abdul, thank you for your presentation. I really enjoy your presentation, and you highlight a lot of things, and it was clear also to understand. And you also highlight the causes, the solutions, and the basic support that the government is giving, especially for food, for the basic food for the school, and providing hospital care and others. So it was a good one, and the presentation was good.
Right. Thanks, Chia.
Thank you.
Kennedy.
So I was the one that was able to help Abdul during this presentation process. So I gave him a lot of feedback last week regarding just what to do, feedback on how to make it better. So Abdul, I'm very proud of you. This is a very successful presentation. I loved how thorough you were with all of your information. I love the images at the end, and I just loved how you were able to talk about the causes, but also address solutions, and then what the government is also doing to amend what's happening right now. So just thank you so much. Great work, and I'm very proud of you.
Thanks, Kennedy. Thanks for your help, both you and Gabriela, for your help and support for our presenters. Other feedback on the presentation before we get into the substance of poverty in Ghana and its impact on families. Other thoughts? Okay, let me offer some. Oh, Fatima, go ahead. Fatima is joining us from Pakistan.
Hello, everyone. This is Fatma Shah. If we talk about the presentation, overall, it was a very good presentation. He clearly mentioned the causes and the impact and everything on country of poverty. And in the meanwhile, it compelled me to think about my country as well when I was listening him. And in the meanwhile, I was thinking about my country, about the causes and the impact of poverty And I can relate that in our country, like many things are associated with poverty, like the child marriage, the child labor, and many other things. So in the feedback, I must say that if somebody talks about something and it compels you to think, it means that the presentation or the talk is so well. So I congratulate him on such a good presentation.
Great, Fatima, thank you. Chia.
Yes, just a quick one. Mr. Abdul, this is a similar situation we are also going through in my country, but I just feel like you didn't have a personal experience in your presentation, I think.
Well, I have an experience with regards to the education aspect, but I think I skipped that due to time. For instance, in 2019, when I completed, here we call it the senior high school, and I was supposed to move to the tertiary institute. I was able to attend or get admission for first year. I was able to pay the fees, but in the second year, I couldn't pay the fees and I had to drop out, wait or be in the house for a year before I could go back for secondary education. So poverty has a whole lot of effect on me as a person.
Exactly.
Chia, any further, that was helpful, Abdul, to get that story, your own personal story of kind of educational poverty in this case. Chia, did you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I understand his point because this is just common in Africa, in everywhere in Africa. You might drop out of school just because of you can't afford for the fees. Your parents might be down, and you see you cannot push them so hard. Also, you have to try on your own. Then you can continue next year, maybe. So it's very common.
Okay, so we are getting into the substance of the conversation, which is great. But I just want to summarize some points to help you, Abdul, with subsequent. And I'm going to mute you so that we don't hear the rooster in the background for a moment. But one of the so I agree that this was an impressive presentation in terms of the information that you presented. I particularly liked one of the first slides, which gave us, I mean, I've never, this, I guess, speaks to my ignorance, and I think to the value of having these kinds of conversations and presentations. But the different kinds of poverty, there was economic poverty, there was social poverty, political poverty, environmental poverty, and I think it was psychological poverty. And so being able to delineate these different ways in which poverty is experienced, I think was really helpful to give us a richer sense of what poverty looks like and how it impacts people. It's clear from your slides that you are in this field, you're doing this work, you have access to a lot of information that you can marshal together. But in contrast with Begum's presentation, it was too much. It was, I think Begum delivered a measured number of information. It was fairly digestible, but in your case, it was a lot of information, and to some extent overwhelming. So I think what you can do to kind of improve your presentation abilities is to try to figure out what you can cut out, because you're never going to be able to do justice in 15 minutes to the complexity of a problem. So it's really about choosing what's most important that you want to convey. And so in this sense, I think Begum's presentation is kind of a good model for how to focus down and come up with some simple points on each slide. But really, I mean, very much appreciate that you did, as other people pointed out, you had photos. It would have been actually great to have more photos. And then and then to speak to your own experience and embed that into your presentation rather than as an afterthought, because I think it's poignant, right? It's significant that you yourself have experienced this poverty problem in Ghana in terms of your education and having to drop out for lack of fees. So overall, really good effort, much appreciated, especially given that the connection is not great here, and you have to deal with that on top of trying to communicate a lot of complex information. So, so getting to the substance, we only have a few minutes to talk about kind of the substance of the poverty problem. Also, I would add it would be great to have more about kind of its impact on families. So focusing on the experience of families and how family life is affected by poverty, even perhaps doing a contrast. I think oftentimes what's really powerful is contrasting, and you can do it in a single slide. On one side, you're presenting what a middle or upper income family has versus what a lower income family has. So yeah, so having that would be helpful to be able to sharpen the difference between poverty and middle or upper income situations. So Begum, my partner just corrected me on your name. I gather it's Begum. Is it Begum?
Gum, with dots over U. But U is not there's no U letter in your alphabet.
Okay, so it's say it again.
Begum.
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 Okay. Begum.
Begum, yes.
All right, sorry about that. Others comments on poverty and the family life. Walter, I'm going to put you on the spot here because your family comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. You're interested in actually addressing this problem. So given that people are not necessarily jumping forth to participate here, I'd love to get your perspective from your own experience. Your family seems to be quite committed to fighting poverty in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Do you have any thoughts on poverty and family life and maybe differences or other things that you would bring up?
Sorry. Yes. By the way, Abdul, great presentation. In addressing poverty, what I've seen firsthand, in my visits to the DRC, poverty can really destroy families because when there's financial instability, parents can't afford, to raise their kids and send their kids to school. So, it separates families internally. And I just feel that in addressing poverty, we can unite families because the family unit is the strongest unit in the world. Without family, you can't have people, can't bring people into this world. So to address poverty is a big thing that you should look forward to on any level, at the most basic levels, whether it's helping people, teaching people how to become financially stable and teaching them self-sufficiency or, giving them large grants or by whichever means, it's a big thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm also going to point to somebody else, David Lopez is likewise one of our new interns. And if I remember correctly, his family comes from Colombia. David, can you hear me? Are you listening? David may not be present.
He wrote in the chat box. Yes, Colombia, Puerto Rico.
Okay, gotcha. If I remember correctly, David is in a place where he cannot speak, he can't use the audio. But David, if you can kind of from your perspective, offer some sense, it would be helpful, of the ways in which poverty is impacting, or if your experience or your knowledge of how poverty is impacting families in Colombia and Puerto Rico, that would be great. So other thoughts that you guys have on this poverty issue, and also how to address it. That's one thing that we haven't really talked about. I do want to mention, in line with this, that political corruption seems to be one of the, perhaps arguably the most important issue in a lot of countries with regards to dealing with poverty and inequality. And that is that a lot of governments seem to be captured by a political party or essentially an elite that controls the government and captures and siphons its resources for their own benefit, at the detriment, or to the detriment essentially of large segments of the population. And that seems to be true in a lot of African countries, and it also seems to be true in a lot of Latin American countries. But I'm wondering if there are any thoughts on that issue of corruption, and if you have any personal experiences of corruption and the ways in which that has actually aggravated poverty and family life. Would love to hear your thoughts here. Shia, I'm curious, and in the case of our so Fatima, if you're still with us, and our family diplomats in particular, I would love to hear. I know you guys are writing some comments in the Zoom chat, but I'm wondering about this whether you've experienced corruption in your everyday lives, and how that's impacted life for families. So Fatima, Abdul, Shia.
Yes, Paul, can I speak?
Yep, of course.
Can you repeat your question so I can answer in a better way?
Corruption, how is it impacted? How have you experienced corruption, and how is it impacting family life?
Yeah, unfortunately, if we talk about my country, corruption is everywhere. And there are many causes of corruption, but if we nowadays see the main reason of corruption is not enough earning. I'm talking about the mediocres and people who are already have suffered from poverty and less income. Like from the upper class, I'm not talking about those people because like it's a separate scenario. But nowadays, people are becoming more corrupt because of their less income, not fulfilling their basic needs. And even if I see, like, if somebody is selling vegetables, they also do a little bit corruption. They don't sell the proper things just to, have more income and sell those things which are not valuable. So these things are also connected with poverty and uh, the not enough income. Corruption is also impacting our family lives because, like, if I talk particularly about my country, like many people I know that they are educated, and I know their long journeys of education, how they have gone through to get all these education, and at the end when they apply for government job, so people ask for bribes. So this is the thing where they stuck and they don't get the job, even if they deserve and they are qualified, but they cannot get it. So people are very much disappointed because of this corruption in our country. It's everywhere, almost in every department, everyone is corrupt. And that's why the economic condition of Pakistan is getting worse day by day. This is what I must say.
Yeah, so it's interesting, Fatima, you mentioned that to get a job, sometimes you have to pay a bribe. I remember one of our family diplomats from Nigeria, Chirunim, has mentioned the ways in which professors at universities will essentially extort sexual favors from some of their students in order to get a better grade. And so, there's corruption, it sounds like, in a lot of different institutions. And that seems to be complicating life and making essentially life more unfair for people who can't afford to pay those bribes, or who refuse to do this kind of sexual or other kinds of extortion. Anyway, we are.
Yes, yeah. Well, this thing is also happening in Pakistan, that nowadays there are many scandals coming on TV, that people are harassing girls, the professors in the universities to give them better grades. They are harassing, they are making their videos and everything, just to give them better grades. So this thing also happening in our countries, like in previous 1 year or few months, I must say, uh, if I check the record, there are many universities in Pakistan who are caught in this thing, So it's not something good. It's not only bribe or harassment, but in many things, I must say that corruption is involved everywhere. It's in every department.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so it was helpful to hear from you guys, from your different perspectives from the world. Of course, as always, one of the values, I think, of this family diplomacy initiative is that we're bringing perspectives from different parts of the world. Really appreciated the presentations by Abdul in Ghana and Begum in Turkey. Much appreciated Kennedy and Gabriela's support for their presentations. So next time we will have 2 to 3 presentations like this time. The plan is for 3. It will be shorter. They will be shorter. Juliana, who's not with us today, but is from Brazil, will be presenting. She's going to include her brother in the presentation, although he's going to be video recorded because he cannot attend at the time of the presentation. But our next meeting, just so you guys know, is in September, on September 8th, Sunday, September 8th, same time. We'll have a different Zoom at that time. And then we have the October presentations will happen on October 13th. And then the November presentations, the last ones, will happen on the 10th of November. So I will be checking with those of you. Fatima, I don't know if you can present. Can you present in September?
I'll try my best, but I think I'm busy in September. Is it okay if I present in October or maybe November?
October is fine. I'll put you down for October.
Okay.
Just make sure to, in all your cases, you should attend all of the meetings to provide each other feedback and to learn, because ultimately I want to convey to you, presenting is not the objective here. The objective is for all of us to learn from the presentations, and then we're comparing your presentation surveys and your post surveys to be able to measure how much you've learned over the course of these 4 sessions of presentations. So the presentations are really just a way of kind of learning and sharing knowledge. Okay, so I think we're set. Joshua, you're presenting likewise in October. So Fatima and Joshua will be presenting in October. Chia, we don't have you set as yet as to when you're presenting. Can you present in September?
Yes, Paul, but if there was a way to shift it, that would be great.
Shift it to what?
shift it to next month, the October, I think.
Okay, so you want to present in October as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you've got it. So you're on for October. That's 3 of you in October. We only have 1 person right now for September, but I think there are others who are not present, who will hopefully be presenting in September. All right, everybody. Thank you for your extra time. I apologize for going over about 10 minutes. But thanks for all your input, and see you in September. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.